Hello there, and welcome to session 3 of our Rebuilding Bible Study series, connected with the series of messages we're working through on Sunday mornings here at St. Andrews, based on the book of Nehemiah. If you haven't listened to the most recent messages, this one actually catches us up to the week that we are at in this series. You'll want to go and look at the messages in this from February 27th and March 6th. And that'll bring us up to Nehemiah chapters 4, 5, and 6, which we look at over these 2 Sundays. And as I mentioned in that part 3 of the Rebuilding series, that February 27th message, these 3 chapters are all connected. They describe a series of obstacles that come up in rebuilding. Some of them take the form of external opposition. That's mainly chapters 4 and 6, and some obstacles come from within. Most obviously in chapter 5, but also we see some of that in chapter 6 as well. So I encourage you, first off, is to take some time, read all 3 chapters together as a unit, and then pause and consider what stands out for you in this part of the story of Nehemiah as a unit. Are the external and internal issues being faced by the people of Israel? Are they separate from each other, or are they connected? And this is something that you may want to come back to after we've looked at each chapter on its own. So again, go through, read all 3 chapters together, and then we're going to take one chapter at a time. All right, looking at chapter 4 then. This chapter was the primary focus of the message from February 27th, and as you read it, take note of the different forms of opposition that facing the people of Jerusalem and Judah. The ones I identify in the message are ridicule, insults. I think something that most of us have experienced in our lives. Certainly I have. I was bullied quite extensively in school. Threats or even direct attempts to control or stop you. Again, that's something we face in different ways, but I think most of us have an experience of that. And again, consider how you felt in those times, and how does this text make you feel when you see it here in the Bible. Also take a note of how Nehemiah responds to this, or doesn't respond to this. Particularly take a note of the prayers that Nehemiah makes at different points in response to this opposition that he and the people of Judah encounter. And particularly take a look at this idea of people standing guard over one another. There'll be some questions about that in this section too. So go do that, or you can continue watching each of these and then sort of work through the notes on your own. All right, we're looking at now at chapter 5, which it was the primary focus of the message from March 6th. And as you read it, take note of the specific issues raised by these ordinary people in Judah and by Nehemiah. I mean, the people themselves come up and they tell Nehemiah, well, this is happening and this is happening. And then Nehemiah takes time to sum it up and then directly confronts the leaders and the wealthier people in the Jewish community. Take note also how Nehemiah responds to these issues, how he models a different approach from many others who came before him. These are sort of the main things, and then just more broadly, consider how honest the Bible is about the failings of God's people. This is one thing I mentioned a little bit in the message, but it's not something we always see in necessarily other traditions. History tends to put the best spin on our own people, yet the Bible is repeatedly brutally honest throughout the whole story of Israel's failings, of people's sins, of the way they rebelled against God. And it's present here in Nehemiah. It's present also in the book of Ezra that leads into it. And particularly as we look at this, is how does this model honesty for us as people of faith today? How does this model humility? I'll have to confess, Christians aren't always the most humble or transparent people, even though we have that model for us in Scripture. And there's also some bonus questions to consider in this section. I put it there because I know it's a more complicated issue that really could warrant a Bible study all of its own. But to look at what the Bible teaches about lending and charging interest, I have some passages that you can look at there. There's plenty of them if you have a Bible study app, or go to BibleGateway.com. Just look for those words interest and loan, and consider what these teachings might have to say to us today. That's the bonus section. And Christians that have genuinely wrestled with this. In the Middle Ages, nobody was allowed to charge another Christian interest. For actually over 1,000 years in the Christian tradition, it wasn't part of what we did. And then that changed as we entered into the modern era. But it's a big issue. If you want to engage it, great. If not, you can just focus on the main questions here. All right, on to chapter 6, which is the one chapter that didn't really get a focus on either of these past two Sundays, but there's a lot of important stuff going on here. And in many ways, I think it ties these themes of internal and external obstacles together. And as you read it, look for the ways that these things do connect with each other. The first part of it is in verses 1 to 9. Nehemiah deals with some attacks on his character, what he's trying to do here in Judah, and it's important to note this is in many ways another case of a threat as well, because the kings of Persia didn't like governors. The Persian name for them was satraps, getting ideas. And it was something that had to be dealt with frequently in the history of the empire. So these are not just attacks on character, but they are a very real potential threat. And consider how Nehemiah deals with that. I'll say here again that his ability to not respond emotionally, not push back with aggression is actually something that's really remarkable. There's other things that Nehemiah, where you might wonder about his leadership ability in other areas, particularly when we get to the end of the book. But I will say that as we look through these chapters, his response to things is remarkably balanced, and I think there are definite things that we can learn from him. And then verses 10 to 19 show a different period when this is a part of the chapter that I think really ties those themes of external and internal together. And there are some questions there that you can reflect on about those things. And so again, I hope that these resources and this video that goes along with the questions is helpful. And again, if you have any particular questions that you want to bring up, don't hesitate to write me an email or give me a call. And I'm always happy to talk through Bible stuff anytime. So until we do another one of these, hope you have a good week, and we'll connect again soon.